Today I will be giving my second presentation about Bitcoin Cash, subtitled Bitcoin Cash, subtitled Cash is King. Woo! Right? This is actually a very recent phrase after like the recession and everything. Because if you need sufficient cash flow in order to keep your company afloat, even if like you have a whole bunch of assets, you can't sell those assets, you don't have any cash, you can't keep the lights on, so you go insolvent. Anyway, so we're going to be covering basically, I'm going to assume some basic familiarity with blockchains and how Bitcoin works. And instead of going over all the basics again, I'm just going to cover the developments that have occurred in Bitcoin Cash, specifically in the past year or so that it's been alive. On that note, happy Cashtober. It's the month that comes after Cashtember and before Cashvember.
This is stupid.
That's the Bitcoin Cash logo, in case you didn't know.
It looks like Bitcoin.
Well, it's like Bitcoin, except it's tilted to the left, and it's in a
Yeah.
paper-looking thing,
Okay, right.
because it's cash.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up the wrap-up that I gave. On August 1st of last year, there was a split between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Core, and the primary difference is that Cash has raised the block size so that transaction fees are supposed to always be low, no matter how many transactions people are trying to make. It also does not have SegWit. And there's now been over a year of Bitcoin Cash development going on. There's lots of cool stuff going on in the Bitcoin Cash community. So here's an interesting new technology that's been in development for some time now and was recently included in Bitcoin Unlimited, one of the Bitcoin Cash nodes. It's called graphene. So called because graphene is the thinnest possible material. What's so?
It's actually implemented?
It is, the basic functionality is implemented from what I understand.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't give huge improvements yet,
Okay.
but they know how to like calculate the graphene message or something. But it can only achieve full, there are further changes to be made in order for it to achieve full improvements, basically. And the technical term for the algorithm that it uses is an invertible Bloom lookup table, which is like a Bloom filter, right? A Bloom filter is something where you basically take a collection of elements, right? Like you take an array, and then it's kind of like a special kind of hash where given any possible element, you can check whether it's in the array or not with very little information with a high probability. Like, you know, if you want 99.9%, probability that you won't have a false negative or a false positive, you can use a Bloom filter. And so this just kind of uses the same thing where it's like telling you which transactions were included in the block with very little additional information required.
Just to clarify, you can't have a false negative in filters.
Okay, you cannot have a false negative, but you can have a false positive. That is the probabilistic part. So yeah, Bloom filters are very cool. Graphene is very cool. And what this does is basically the bandwidth required for transmitting the block once it's been mined using graphene is orders of magnitude less than transmitting the full block. That means that I already said, storage is no problem. You can buy like a 10 terabyte hard drive for pretty cheap these days. The bandwidth, right, is the real problem. Bandwidth and latency. Of course, you can't fix latency with an algorithm, but you can optimize your use of bandwidth, which is what this does. So this will enable further scaling improvements. And in terms of privacy, right, we all know that unlike other privacy-centric coins like Monero and Mimblewimble, this has nothing to do with Mimblewimble, but it is a privacy feature that allows you to basically aggregate transactions in such a way that you'll get your Bitcoin Cash back, but the outputs, so the coins you get from that, cannot be traced back to you definitively. It's basically like we're combining person A sends their inputs, person B, person C, all the way down to like person Z. You get a whole bunch of people to combine their inputs in this one massive transaction, and then it's like what's going on inside this transaction, you don't really know until it goes to like, A prime, but A prime, we don't know this because it's a new address that's just randomly generated, right? So this is basically breaking the chain analysis whenever a coin goes through one of these coin join transactions. And so Cash Shuffle basically just gives you a way to easily do these transactions with you just pick a server and you ping that server and say, hey, is there a transaction being built right now? And so if it says like, oh yeah, 5 out of 6 people are waiting for somebody to join in and do this coin join, then you're like, great, okay, put me in. Now everybody's in. Let's all do it, and then okay, now we're done. That is basically all that the Cash Shuffle improves. That's basically the only thing that it does is just enables you to find people to do coin joins with, right? And it makes it easier to do this process and improves the fungibility and privacy of your Bitcoin Cash. However, you can only use it with Electron Cash right now, that particular wallet. And I tried to run a server for a while. Not very many people are using it apparently yet. But also the code needs to be reviewed, it needs to be audited for security. So my advice is just wait for Cash Shuffle to mature. And then once it has matured some, and probably you'd want to like go through a proxy or a Tor or something to make sure that your transaction cannot be traced to your IP. Once you do that, it'll be very easy to just go on a Cash Shuffle server and shuffle it so that everybody gets more privacy. Okay, here's the fun part. Everybody, privacy is important, but what we really want to be able to do is to play skeet ball, and then when we play skeet ball, we want to feed our tokens into the skee ball machine, and then if we do well at the skee ball, then we get tickets where we can go up to the counter in exchange for prizes like gum and extremely overpriced electronics and other valuables, where kids can be a kid. Okay? So, yes, tokens are a big thing in Ethereum, of course, and people are trying to work on putting them in Bitcoin Cash. So there's like no one. Ethereum has ERC20. Pretty much everybody uses that, as far as I know, still. But there's no like one solution for tokens on Bitcoin Cash that has become the dominant one yet. And there's a whole lot of different proposals, like Counterparty Cash. That was a project that was done from like 2014 to 2016 on the original Bitcoin chain. But I checked the Counterparty Cash website recently, and there's been no updates since February, so I wouldn't count on them. Okay, so, Wormhole is like the newest one, right, which is being worked on by Bitcoin ABC and then some people for smart contracts, which will also enable tokens. It's one of the things that a smart contract is useful for. Some might argue one of the only things a smart contract is useful for to date. And then there's an op group proposal, which started as a proposal to add a single opcode just for tokens, but apparently they've been changing it a lot, and I couldn't really take the time to look into it in full detail. But it would probably consist of at least 2 or more opcode changes to the protocol, and there's like, it looks okay, but I'm not qualified to judge it, so. And then there's like, just in like the past month, in the past couple of months, there were 2 other proposals which were called recursive smelting in just Bitcoin token by this guy called Clemens. So people are coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas and they're trying to implement them. So we're still in the early stages of token support for Bitcoin Cash. But once we get it, it'll be really exciting, because then we can have like red Bitcoin Cash and blue Bitcoin Cash and all sorts of colors on that spectrum.
So Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Cash, but Bitcoin already has ability for some very primitive tokens, so Bitcoin Cash is the same thing.
That would be counterparty, I believe.
I think it's also Omni layer.
Oh yes, actually Wormhole is based on OmniLayer.
Okay.
Wormhole is based on OmniLayer,
And I think
but
there's
it has
also
some changes.
some op return stuff you can do.
Yes, it uses op return.
Okay, got it.
Yes, it does. I didn't put all the technical details in there, but yeah, it's being worked on. I skipped out on this slide, which I probably shouldn't have. But so there's now things called like memo.cash and BlockPress, which are like similar to Twitter, except your posts are literally stored on the blockchain. Like your transaction is specially formatted so that it forms a post on social media. So you can use this now and have uncensorable shit posts.
They should just like do a Merkle tree thing, so you don't put every single freaking post on blockchain.
This is what I don't know exactly how it works, but
Okay.
there's an easy built-in way for you now to do social media on Bitcoin Cash blockchain, which is something that I don't know if anybody actually asked for, but now we have it. There's also Yours, which is not on the blockchain, but it's like people tip each other using Bitcoin Cash, so
That's cool.
forgot to add that in there.
I thought it was, so they switched to Bitcoin Cash from Bitcoin?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
So, wait, huh? Did I skip some slides? Oh, yeah, I skipped a couple slides, sorry. So, Flowy the Hub used to be here, but then they moved it down to the project section because I don't think it's actually supposed to be a real node. So they replaced it with Bcash, which is the name of the Bitcoin Cash version of Bcoin, which is a JavaScript Node.js Bitcoin node. So yeah, there's ups and downs to this change, but other than that, Bitcoin ABC and Bitcoin Unlimited are still under heavy development. And Parity and Bitprim, those are just like, I don't know, because people like writing stuff in Rust. I like Rust, but the ones that are really in use are ABC and Unlimited. Like I just said, they make up about 90% of all of the nodes, and they're roughly even-ish. Like I would say that they're within like 20% of each other, I think. And they also, you can check this on CoinDance. So you can go to like cash.coin.dance and check it. But because of the decentralized development teams, of course there are going to be disagreements sometimes. So ABC and Unlimited generally get along pretty well. I guess the lead developer for ABC, Amari Sache or something, he's a little bit of a less patient and/or person or something. He's a very headstrong person, so you know, he likes to butt heads with people. Unlimited is more just like the chill kind of people, you know. But then there's somebody else there's the new kid on the block, and by new I mean old guy. You may know of Craig Wright.
Oh no.
Also known as Fake Satoshi. Okay, I don't like Craig Wright. You know, he's just, his entire backstory and everything that he says is just a mishmash of half-truths.
Oh God.
Like the time that he said he had a PhD from some university when he only had a master's degree, and he calls himself Dr. Craig Wright, even though his doctorate is actually in theology, not
What?
computer science.
Wait, it's actually theology?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So he has some kind of coding ability, probably, but he's not a doctor of computer science. He's a doctor of theology. So
Wait, does he call himself just doctor?
he calls himself Dr. Craig Wright.
Right, but that, I mean, he is a right, I mean, he is doctor, right?
But
I
he,
suppose so.
but he makes it seem like he's a doctor.
He doesn't draw attention to the fact that it's a doctor in theology.
Which is like the worst thing you can get in.
Anyway, okay.
I'm not quite.
So his new company is called Nchain, right? With a lowercase n. And they have Bitcoin SV.
And chain.
Yes. You won't find that on Wikipedia yet. Somebody needs to add that. Bitcoin SV was recently released version 0.1.0, just like a week or two ago, and it stands for Satoshi Vision. Not Satoshi's vision, just Satoshi Vision, which sounds like a special kind of goggles that you put on or something, but that's what they called it. So I guess like the Satoshi Vision makes more sense. Maybe put it that way.
Has this gentleman, Mr. Wright, has he ever represented himself to be the actual Satoshi?
Yes.
Yeah.
He says he is.
He did like a demonstration where he signed some message using the like Satoshi key or something.
And how did they disprove that?
Because he never.
Well, because like
actually
it was like in
revealed
a private group. It was like in a room with
Yeah.
just a limited number of people.
He never revealed it.
And so like some people think that maybe they pulled the wool over their eyes or something.
Oh, why couldn't he just like do it on a live stream? I don't know.
Because he's not Satoshi.
Yeah, I guess.
Because if he did, that would spoil the surprise. But yeah, so Craig Wright, he just, also you'll find later that like he's not being very nice. But anyway, Bitcoin SV is not nice because they don't want to follow the hard fork plan that Bitcoin ABC wants to go with, and they just want to do stuff with opcodes and increase the block size limit to 4 times what it is now, even though the block size limit that we've had now has never actually been reached. So, and people are questioning like, well, what is the point of this?
It's really weird.
But yeah, the point of this is that Craig Wright likes to have his name on stuff. And he has lots of patents to prove it. Okay, so VIP 135 is sort of like a middle way between the between like ABC and SB, and then in the middle there's like VIP 135 where miners should be able to pick and choose which features they want precisely. And this VIP 9 was like an earlier version of this, if anybody knows what that is. It's essentially using the version bits of the block header to signal which features they want to support, which consensus rules changes. So this is implemented in Bitcoin Unlimited, but nobody's actually using it. So it's like people are like, hey, go express your opinion, and then just crickets so far. But and there's only 3 weeks left till the fork. But Bitcoin Unlimited basically wants to try and maintain compatibility as much as possible. So like they have different options for like what could happen during the fork. They want to be on whichever side of it wins, I guess. So that brings us to the November hard fork as a topic. It's coming in November 15th, which is in 3 weeks. So, better get your hats on, ready for because the reason that there's a hard fork is that the development groups of Bitcoin Cash all agreed that, hey, having a hard fork every 6 months is something we should do. Now, they did this because they don't want to end up like Bitcoin Core, where it's just like no practical changes being done for like ever, and they want to continue evolving the protocol and not just like hit a wall. So they made this plan to make continual incremental improvements to the protocol every 6 months for sure. This is the second one of those planned hard forks. The first one was in May 2018, and that worked okay. But this one is a little bit less clear so far. I explained some of this already, but so canonical transaction ordering is something that will make graphene much more efficient, and ABC wants to include it with their bundle of changes. And then there was a conference or something recently where all of the development teams got together to like talk it out with each other, and Craig Wright was there, but then like 5 minutes in, he just started like standing up and shouting, and then he walked out. So, and then none of the other people from InChain were able to explain why he did that. So he just has a very big ego. Okay, and there's not much communication occurring between these different sides right now. What?
If Mr. Wright is not a programmer, why was he at this meeting?
He's
the
like
head
the
of one of
CEO of
the-
InChain, which is the development team that's developing Bitcoin SV,
So he didn't have a technical role, but he was managing the technical team.
essentially.
Oh.
I mean, his technical role is like not at the code level. If he does involved in the technical level, he's like more at like the higher level design or whatever. But so there's only 3 weeks left, and it looks like that they're probably not going to come to a last minute compromise on this. So the hash war will be the only way to figure out which fork will proceed. In other words, we have to do this the hard way.
How can you win the hash war?
Huh? What do you mean?
How do you
Having
win?
more hash power.
Well, I mean, unless they change the difficulty.
But like, even
Without
if they
so-
agreed, how would that work?
So what happens is
What do you
when
mean?
you have a hard fork, people are always trading blocks.
Right.
But a hard fork, basically the block that's created is only for one software set or another software set. And if there's a hard fork between, software changes A, software changes B, any block that comes about can't be for both of them, it's only for one of them.
Right.
So the hash war is whoever has enough hash power to get to the difficulty readjustment phase and to actually continue making the blockchain longer. If one hard fork doesn't get enough hash power, it's
It'll probably be abandoned because of unprofitability.
right. There's just no blocks on that chain.
It's a dead end because the miners are wasting money at that point.
Right.
But if they agree, if they had the diplomacy and Mr.
If
Wright.
they agreed, then everybody would hard fork in synchronization.
Yeah, it would be the same code.
Okay.
It wouldn't be different code or different specs. It might be different code, but it would be different protocols.
So there's 2 potential hard forks, but only one of them really
Wins.
is probably going to win. And in my estimation, since Bitcoin ABC is the dominant
It's gonna win.
implementation,
Oh yeah.
they're almost definitely is going to go with ABC.
But Craig Wright might do something sketchy.
Even though CoinGeek actually backs Bitcoin SV, apparently CoinGeek is a big mining pool, but yeah, I don't think that they've got like 20% of the hash power, So it's not nothing, but it's not enough in the long run.
Mhm.
So these are the changes that will be included in the Bitcoin ABC hard fork plan. Canonical transaction ordering, where you know for a fact, given a set of transactions, how they be ordered in the block in order for the block to be valid. First you have Coinbase, and then you have all other transactions sorted by transaction ID. Not by hash, by the transaction ID. Then there is opcheck datasig and opcheck datasig verify, which are essentially just like the checksig opcode, except they act on the data which is on your stack interpreter. So it's a smart contract thing. It allows you to make like second level, quote unquote, signatures for data which will then be manipulated by your smart contract. Other than just signing your transaction, you can already do that, but this is like, in the data of your transaction, you include something which is then signed.
Okay.
And this enables the miners to verify that signature.
That's cool, that's cool.
So that's interesting. Yeah. Everything else other than that is basically just like, basically just for security. The minimum transaction size is to prevent some kind of attack on simple payment verification wallets, so like light wallets. This is in order to basically, I think, make sure that you can't flood the light wallet with too many small transactions. I don't know exactly the reason, but it's not, 100 bytes is still pretty small. Like, there are almost no transactions which are less than 100 bytes, unless you specifically construct it that way, right? Then there's some technical stack machine rules, like the stack has to be clean, you gotta pop everything up at the end, etc. Just for making sure the groundwork for smart contracts is clean and solid. And then there's the replay protection, which will be activated in May. On the time of the next fork, they will start using the fork ID in each block to protect against replay attacks automatically, or in each transaction actually, I think. There will be a fork ID included. This is the final slide. We've arrived at the final slide. You didn't expect it? Yeah, neither did I, but there we are. Okay, so in order to make good use of our time, I think now would be a good time to discuss any of the things which I've talked about, or anything else related to Bitcoin Cash, which people might be curious about or want to go over in more detail. If you've got any questions.
I really, really like the schedule of hard forks.
Yeah?
It's great.
You think it's a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it makes sense too, because like other coins like Monero, they have scheduled hard forks, but I don't think they schedule them like recurring every fixed time period.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good, because you need industry to have time to be expected to upgrade at certain times that are regular.
I think Monero, maybe they do, I'm not sure, but yeah.
It's nice.
Any other comments or questions?
You done? Okay, let's give Hector an applause.
Cool, nice. Yeah, I was working on this presentation, and it's like, I sort of spent too much time in researching the hard fork stuff. It is important, but like I just didn't have enough to include, I didn't have enough details included about the community and about, other projects that are more front-end related to Bitcoin Cash. But those are cool too, because like we want people to actually use it and be able to use it easily. So Oh, did I just switch there? Okay. So, yeah,
Hector will be melting our minds.
I don't know, has anybody's mind melted?
No, that wasn't that.
I hope not.
I need to write a script that automatically sets it. Wait, no, it already says this Thursday.
There's also bitcoincashers.org, which is kind of weird. I didn't understand it at first, because there's already bitcoincash.org. But I guess this is just a slightly different website, which is more new-friendly or something. I don't know.
Looks cool.
Sorry, what did you say again, Ethan? About a script for...
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about the BT Crypt website.
BitCrit.
I didn't,
Oh,
I don't wanna, just in case, like in the past, I've forgotten to update it for multiple weeks at a time. I've set it to say this Thursday rather than specific Thursday,
oh,
so it's always correct.
oh, okay.
And saying that,
So maybe you haven't updated it since the Mimblewimble talk?
no, I updated it for this one, I just didn't know you were talking about Bitcoin Cash, all I knew was you were presenting.
Oh,
So I just
okay.
said,
You just
Hector-
assumed it would be an extremely complicated topic.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's not necessarily always a wrong assumption to make. But yeah. Oh, here's Wormhole, which I was talking about
That
earlier.
looks cool.
Notice that like lots of websites related to Bitcoin Cash end in .cash, which is a real top-level domain.
I like that.
I like .cash. In fact, I have one, but it has to remain secret.
Oh.
Okay.
Why?
On the registration.
Why is it secret?
It's a secret.
Tell me.
Hector.cash, it's not.
No,
What else could it be?
Is it anime?
It's like porn.cash or something. That's why it has to be secret.
no. It's not embarrassing. It just has to be secret
Why?
for OPSEC.
Business purpose?
Anyway.
Why for OPSEC?
Yeah.
Why for OPSEC?
So you see, yes, this is related to Omni. It's basically Omni translated to Bitcoin Cash,
Cool.
and it uses op return. Yeah. But is it actually working yet? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It also has something to do with ERC 721.
Cool.
Also, this English is not very well Englished.
Yeah, that's common.
Yeah. So there's this. There's Wormhole. What else is there? Oh yeah, Coindance. Check out Coindance.
Coindance,
It's
cool.
pretty cool. I like it. This gives you vital stats about Bitcoin Cash. It is currently 11, well, that changed very recently. It is currently 11% more profitable to mine on the Bitcoin Core chain.
Wow.
But it's also currently 36 times more expensive to transact on that chain. So pick which one you like. This also shows the profit parity over time. So you can see like during the emergency difficulty adjustment days, the difficulty adjustment for Bitcoin Cash oscillated wildly until eventually they stopped that. They activated the new difficulty adjustment algorithm. And now it adjusts every single block more or less continuously. So due to economic reasons, it should always be close to profit parity with BTC for mining purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You can also see here the mining pool hash power, and like I mentioned, this red one right here is SV pool, which is the only one running Bitcoin SV as far as I know. So,
Oh god.
but then you could possibly add CoinGeek to that, which is the largest single pool,
Oh no.
but they still only have, what did it say, 25% roughly of the hash power. So this plus this is not more than 50%.
Oh god.
Okay, and then pretty much everybody else runs either ABC or unlimited. So there's fairly even distribution here. These are a bunch of blocks that are on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin Cash. You can see how many transactions each of them has, what its size is, and so not very much traffic lately. Most of the blocks are pretty small still, but it's always ready. If people suddenly start wanting to use it, millions of people at the same time, they can, more or less. You can also see under the nodes, this is where I got the information about the number of nodes. You can see by this, clearly, this is ABC. So, and this is unlimited, which is compatible with ABC. And then this is Bitcoin SV. So this is not hash power. This is simply the number of distinct nodes. But as you can tell, unless like, these are all like, you know, this slice is like secretly Bitcoin SV, and then they're going to switch at the last minute, Bitcoin SV is not going to win the hash war, right?
No.
So, but it is increasing, but this is just the number of nodes. So,
And it's less than 100.
yeah,
So,
rounded above. And apparently there are at least a few people running the Bitcoin thing,
what the hell is Bitcoin?
the Node.js one.
Oh, okay. I don't know what this. Okay.
And then there's Flowy the Hub,
What?
which is the old one, but it's just like, it's very quirky, so it's not actually good for running a mining operation.
XT.
XT is sticking around, they're hanging in there,
Kind of.
okay. But really at this point, it's ABC and unlimited. Some other cool stuff, which is, okay, well, this is more information, like if you go to GitHub, Bitcoin Cash org, it has more information about the specs of the hard fork and everything. So here's a nice list here of, apparently, also you can always just go to bitcoincash.org. That's like your starting point for anything related to Bitcoin Cash. But this is like one of those awesome branded lists, which is about awesome Bitcoin Cash. So yeah. It's basic information. And then this has a lot of resources for Bitcoin Cash, payment processors. BitPay is a big one because lots of people use BitPay for accepting Bitcoin payments, and they also support Bitcoin Cash. So I'm pretty sure that at this point, anyone who accepts BitPay, who uses BitPay as a payment processor, you can pay them with Bitcoin Cash. So that's pretty useful, right? The ecosystem is fairly large for BitPay. And then there's like many different point of sale systems. I feel like this list has not been updated as recently as I would like it to be. Because I know for a fact. Let's check out Memo. Oh yeah, look. If anybody wants to try and sign up for the Bitcoin social network, you can try memo.cash.
The new MySpace.
There are-
Do they have a security warning?
No one cares about
It says you
security
control your
warnings.
private
They have
keys.
insecure scripts. What are you talking about? It's like a big thing for your privacy.
Oh, okay.
So this is the about page, and it's just a bunch of links.
What is it?
Which is disappointing.
What's the security warrant?
See, like how Mexico catalog has like the shield.
Can we get a better explanation of how this actually works? Okay, here we go. Okay,
What does that
so
mean? Means that there's
the
some
cloud-
JavaScript that was written in an insecure way.
complaining about the
Is
cloud,
it like verified?
the blockchain.
No, it checks the JavaScript.
Saying
and
that
it
the
does,
blockchain
like,
is
JavaScript
cool.
method that's insecure.
Oh, yeah, so
Is it cross-site
this,
scripting or something like that? Or
the posts are embedded into the op return.
That's cool.
Oh, you can also, oh wait. They have a different page here, which might be better. So basically you just embed some actions into the op return. Interesting.
Does anyone not know what op return is? I'm guessing most people don't. Yeah.
I
Okay,
don't
so
really know either.
so basically, opcodes are okay. Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and cryptocurrencies in general. In the transaction, when you create a transaction and send money, what you're part of the transaction is called a script, and it's kind of like a language consisting of opcodes.
It's a stack-based language.
Yeah.
So opcodes are operators on the data stack.
If running the script returns a true, then that means that it's valid. If it returns a false, that means that it's invalid and the transaction's thrown away. So what this means is, like, if you're, let's say with a very simple script, it could say check if the signature is correct and check if the public key when hashed is this address, okay? So it does that operation, but there's 5 opcodes in that script. And then when people run the operation, it turns true or false. If it's false, they throw it away. True, they keep it. So op return in this case is an opcode that just contains data that doesn't do anything for the basic Bitcoin protocol. It's basically like an extra field, an excess field.
It's been there forever.
Yeah. It's just, it allows for applications to be embedded inside of transactions that can be processed by third parties, not by Bitcoin Cash itself. But I guess it could be eventually. Kind of makes sense.
So you see they have all of these actions, right?
Why would you want a script inside a transaction?
Well, that's actually, all transactions actually have scripts.
Like, what runs?
The miners
You want
validate
it-
the script before including it in a block.
Yeah, exactly. And also, every single node in the peer-to-peer network that's called a full node, which means whenever they receive transactions, they process them, they'll also run those scripts. It's kind of a more streamlined way of structuring a transaction. And it allows for,
It's like
sophisticated applications.
It's like a very simple smart contract.
Yeah.
Each transaction is basically just saying, check if I'm a valid transaction, right? Or just return true, and then get that payment, right?
So are all scripts the same?
No, you can, there's a set of opcodes, and opcodes are like operations that can be done. Or basically, yeah, operations that can be inside the script. So in Bitcoin, there's a limited amount. It's not Turing complete. It's not like a Turing complete language. But you can do things like check signature. So given some data that's inputted, you can check if that signature is correct. And so, for example, this is might blow some people's minds. You can send money. Let's say if you made a script that returned true only if the hash of some input is the number inside the script stack. So let's say number. This is an example of how weird you can get. All right, let's say some numbers here, some hash operation. So if this is inside the transaction, if somebody can input a number that when the hash is applied to it is equal to this number, then they can spend the coins.
Is basically saying if you possess a secret, you can spend this.
And basically, any program that you can write with these opcodes, you can put in, you can have, let me explain as well. You can create a transaction that is spendable if you make that script true. Output true.
Okay, so,
This is where,
so this transaction is on the ledger?
it's on the ledger, yeah.
So, okay, so what if it returns false, then is it kept on the ledger?
It won't go on the ledger if it's false.
Okay,
That's one of the rules of Bitcoin protocol.
If your transaction, which is attempting to input something into this, returns false and it's not equal, then that transaction is never even seen on the blockchain.
Right.
got it.
Right. So like what's happening step by step there, let's say that person A creates a transaction. No, let's say it's already a transaction in the blockchain. TX1. Person A creates a transaction that references this one. So this is in the inputs. There's also outputs. But person A has to fulfill the input scripts. By spending the inputs, what person A is actually doing is, there's some output scripts here. So there's a script 1, let's say, that's right here. Person A is taking that script 1, putting in some data as an input or an argument to the program, and if, and then packaging this in a transaction and sending it around. But if this person here takes that transaction, processes it with A's inputs to the script 1, and it's bunk and output's false, B doesn't carry it on around the network. It just stops here if it's false. If it's true, B sends it around.
Okay.
Does that make more sense? Eventually, after that, it'll be included in the blockchain.
You can also do things like time lock.
Does that kind of make sense? It's complicated. It'll take a while, but what doesn't make sense about it? No.
I'll ask about it later.
Okay. Yeah. Please do. It's really cool stuff. This is where it gets mind blowing.
So essentially, like, this is not using any of that fancy functionality. This is just like embedding, fluff into the op return,
Yeah.
which is like a comment.
It's kind of like
Not like
if
a
you
buffer?
take the script.
It's like a comment. It does nothing.
Yeah, it's a comment, exactly. But the cool thing is, since it's still data, and that data is embedded in the blockchain forever,
They
you
just
can have applications that process that,
Like they have a.
add meaningful stuff.
I don't like to call it this, but it is a second layer application.
Right, it is, yeah.
They're just interpreting the raw data and like as different social media actions, right?
Right,
Oh my
It's
God.
very simple.
Oh, okay.
You just embed arbitrary data into your transaction and it gets interpreted as a social media post.
kind of dumb. Yeah. That's that.
That's what it does.
Okay.
Which means, of course, you have to spend about 1 cent every time you want to like somebody's post to make the transaction. For the transaction fee. Yeah. But yeah, so it's cool that people are like, they're trying this out, maybe it's like a proof of concept essentially.
Very cool. You want to close the meeting over here?
I suppose, yes, we will officially close the meeting. Thank you for
coming.
thank you everyone for coming and learning about cash is king.
Worn down.
Unfortunately, I have something to go to right now.
Great to see you.
Maybe next week.
Cash is king.
Does anyone else wanna see this?
See what?
See what?
How scripts work?
Sorry.
Check out scripts or transactions in Bitcoin or opcodes in Bitcoin. Any of those work.
Yeah.
Vitalik he's like a marketing genius.
That's
How,
what I was
like, he
thinking,
changed it
yeah.
from just scripts
To
to
smart-
smart contracts.
Right, yeah.
Oh, it sounds so much more exciting
Yeah,
when you call it
because
that.
really, Bitcoin had a good amount of what Ethereum already had. Ethereum made it usable,
Yeah.
and
And they're-
Ethereum renamed it, and Ethereum added a bunch of top code so it's term complete. That's the main thing.
With Solidity, even though Solidity is
Thank you
like
for
the
coming.
worst. Solidity is worse than JavaScript. Literally.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so, yeah.
Every
I don't know.
entrancy problems are just killer. That's what caused the parity wallet bug.
The what problems are?
The parity wallet
No,
bug.
you
The
said
entrancy.
What is
It means the variables change from under you.
What?
They do.
Should not.
Turn off the camera.
Yeah.
The
See,
camera
it
does
turned
not turn
itself.
off until I say it turns off.